Hey guys, so I'm gone this week, and so we need to start off math support um, with me talking to you virtually. Everything's going to be a lot like last semester. There's going to be a little less ascend. We will still do ascend on the days that we have all 7 classes. So on those weeks where there's 5 days of school, you will be expected to do one ascend assignment that week, or one ascend level that week. So anyway, so I'm going to start class off from home. Ignore my messy craft room behind me. Um, Craft rooms are meant to be messy, so don't judge. Okay, so today you just have an assignment, and it does go with what we're doing in math in Algebra 2. So Algebra 2 this for Tuesday and Wednesday is properties of exponents, and so we're going to actually practice with them in this class. So if you haven't had Algebra 2 yet, you're going to get a little head start on part of the Chapter 5 opener, but this is really critical stuff, and it is something. I can't even talk. The rules of exponents you did cover in Algebra 1. I just know that's been a really long time, so we are covering it again so we can do some things with it this chapter. So it's really important that you understand these rules. So for today, I want to show you a few things first that are different on Canvas, or if you're new to my class, and go over expectations, and then you're free to get started. Okay. While you're in this class, do not sleep. Do not be on your phone unless you are absolutely finished with everything. That means caught up in Algebra 2. So if you've already had class, that means having the assignment for the day done and submitted to your Algebra 2 teacher, and doing the assignment and getting it submitted for math support. Okay, so math support is meant to be mostly content that's going to help you. And because we're in person this semester, this will be a lot easier. Last semester, it was really hard to give you that content, and we had to use Ascend more. And then part of math support is then to help you, give you more time to finish and ask questions. So even though I'm not there this week, if you have questions for Algebra 2, you can email me. I might not get back right away. So but I'll get back with you within 24 hours. So, okay, so let me share my screen so you can see the new changes to Canvas for you. Here we go. Okay, so mine looks a little different than yours because I'm a teacher in student view, so I have this maroon little line along the bottom. Just ignore that. But if you go to either the modules on the side or the coursework on the front, I will always have the current week at the top. Eventually, if there's important information I need to put in here, I will put that above. It'll be the very top module, and then it'll have the week modules. But for now, I just have this week. You see there are 2 assignments. This is an overview of the week, okay? There will be a video, this video that I'm making right now, that will post right here. And then it'll have the Canvas assignment and some important information just that you can gather. Now, this properties of exponents will be helpful for today and Thursday or Friday. So, and then it's got the link to the 2 Canvas assignments. So that's all you have to do. This tells you what you're doing, everything for the week. And of course the assignment is locked, so you can't see it, but I'm going to leave student view so you can see it. Okay, so this will be the page. Okay, you'll open the assignment. You can edit it on your iPad. I recommend after you edit it that you save it. So you might want to make a math support folder in your OneDrive, and then save it there, and then turn it in. Okay, there's 15 problems, so it is going to be worth 15 points. And then I will continue the rest of this video giving you like some instruction on how to actually use those properties. So don't go to the assignment yet. You might want to get out a piece of paper to take some notes on, and we will get started from there. actually, I'm sorry, there's going to be a paper for you to take notes on. The sub will have to pass those out. And then you'll go from there. So take the notes, then you're going to get on and do the practice, and you can just do the practice on your iPad. Or if you want a printed copy, the sub will have a couple of those too. So, and then just take a picture, but you got to turn the pictures into PDFs. Everything has to be submitted as a PDF. So you can have multiple ways to turn things in, but it does need to be turned in into Canvas as a PDF. So I will start now with a little lesson that will help you be able to do this practice for today.
All right, so these are the notes for math support for the first lesson when we're starting chapter 5 within our Algebra 2 class. So we're going to review properties of exponents. So these notes will be for the simplifying exponents activity. Okay, so let's start with our rules of exponents. Okay, if you've already had Algebra 2 today or yesterday, depending on when you're watching this video, you've already seen these rules. They're the same. We're going to still use them. They're very important. So there's the product rule. When you're multiplying two terms together and the bases are the same and the powers can be the same or different, you add the powers together and you just get that base one time. Okay. The quotient rule, it's when it's a fraction, so now you have a term divided by a term. If the bases are the same, you can subtract their powers. Sometimes this leaves you with a negative power, and then you've got to use the negative rule, but we'll talk about that in a second. The power rule is this time I have a term, and its whole term, so this term is to a power, and it is taken to a power. So in that case, you multiply the powers. That negative rule just says, okay, if you have a term and it's to a negative power, then you need to change it to a fraction. So that negative just moves it from the top to the bottom. Or if it's in the denominator and it's negative, it needs to move to the top. So it either moves it up or down depending on where that negative is located. So a power of a product. So this time I have two terms together, multiplied together, and I need to take them to a power. So that means each term inside that parentheses is taken to that power. The power of a quotient is the same rule. So inside my parentheses I have a quotient. Each term has to be taken to the power, and obviously m cannot be 0 because you cannot have a 0 in the denominator. The 0 exponent just means if it's to the power of 0, then that term is 1. There is no more variable. That's why I love that term. It just kind of makes it go away. Or 1 has to go in its place if that leaves nothing there. But if there's other things there, it just kind of disappears because anything times 1 is itself. So then you have the exponent of 1. So n to the first power is just n. So I love these two bottom ones. They're the first two I look for, so I can just get rid of those. You won't see this 1 power very often. It'll just be written as n, but just in case, those are the shortcuts. So I'm going to leave these rules up here. And what we are going to now do is simplify expressions, okay? So we're going to start with number 1. All right, so it says we have 6x cubed times 2x to the 5th. So I have a couple of things here. I actually have 4 terms being multiplied together. I have a 6 times an x cubed times a 2 times an x to the 5th. So I'm going to take these numbers and I'm just going to multiply them together. So I get 12. Okay? Then I notice I have x cubed and x to the 5th. So the bases are x, so I know no matter what, I'm going to have a base of x. But my powers are 3 and 5. So because this is multiplying, we're going to use the product rule. So I am going to add the powers. So that'd be a 3 plus 5. So to simplify this, we don't leave that in our final answer. We still have the 12. We still have the base of x. And 3 plus 5 is 8. So I am finished when I have no variable listed more than once. In this case, our variable is x, and it is only once. I have no negative power, and in this case, I don't. Or zero power, I should say. You have only a positive power. All right, so let's try number 2. This time, we have a quotient, because it's dividing, so we're going to use the quotient rule on this one. Okay. If you had different terms on the top, or x multiple times on the top, we would want to go ahead and simplify the numerator and then simplify the denominator. But in this case, I only have x once on the top and y once, and on the bottom I only have x and y. So we're going to just go ahead and use the quotient rule. And the quotient rule says if I have, when the bases are the same, and one's in the numerator, one's in the denominator, I subtract. So I take the numerator's power minus the denominator's power. So that's going to leave me with x is my base, because these two over here have a base of x. Now, if this doesn't list a power, that's this exponent of 1 rule. It doesn't list a power, that means its power is 1. So I have x to the first power is in the numerator, and x cubed is in the denominator, so I'm going to subtract 3. And that's still times y, and in the numerator I have a power of 6, and in the denominator I have a power of 3. Okay, so let's simplify this up a little bit. I have x, and then I have a 1 minus 3 is a negative 2, and then I have y, 6 minus 3 is 3. Okay, normally I would say, okay, I'm done, but I'm not. I cannot have a negative power, but I am down to just having one x and one y, but I can't have a negative power. So we've got to use this negative rule. Okay, right here. It says if it's in the numerator, then I'm going to move it to the denominator, and now it's no longer negative. So in the numerator, no matter what, I still have y cubed. Okay, it's still there, it's still positive, we're going to leave it alone. But to get rid of this negative in front of the 2, I have to move x squared down, and just the negative goes away. That's what that negative does. So now I have all positive exponents, and I only have my variables written once. All right, let's try number 3. Oops, helps if I put it right direction here. Actually, I'm going to get rid of this so I can move this up a little bit. All right, so number 3. Now I have a power rule, or product of a power, okay? So we're going to do product of a power. Because I have, in parentheses, products. These are all being multiplied together, and it's taken everything to the power. So what that power product means is I need to distribute that power to every term inside that parentheses. So I'm going to end up with 2 squared x to the 4th. Now this has to use also the power rule. Now that x to the 4th is being squared. So this also has to use that power rule. Okay, so x to the 4th, and that power rule says we multiply the power, so that's going to be times 2, because that's the power outside. And then I have y, and really if you wanted to look at 2 taken to that power and the y taken to the power, it's still the power rule, because without a power listed inside the parentheses, its power is 1, and we're taking it times the power on the outside. And that's the same thing for this 2. I just simplified it and just wrote it as 2 because 1 times anything is that number. So we'll simplify this a little bit. 2 squared is 4. X, and I have 4 times 2 is 8. And I have y, 1 times 2 is 2. Now, I only have x and y written once. I have all my powers being positive. That is as simplified as it gets. Okay? So let's try the last one here. Now, the first thing I like to look for are those pretty 0 exponents here. Look, I've got one right there. So y to the 0 power is the number 1. It is not y to the first power. It is just 1. So here this leaves me with a 3 times 1. Well, 3 times 1 is 3. So I just kind of cross it out. It's not there. Okay? All right. On the top, I have a 2x squared times 3. So I need to just take a product here by multiplying the 2 and 3 together. And then this means I have a quotient. So I'm going to use the quotient rule. Now I'm not writing down the product rule because there's not two bases with powers that are different, or I'm sorry, bases are the same that I need to add the power. So I'm just actually taking a product, which is 2 times 3, and I get 6. Okay, and then I just have x squared. So I'm just going to leave that for a second. Then on the bottom, I have 12x to the 4th. So that's where we're going to use the quotient rule. So this was just taking the product. I just simplified the numerator. And now it's time to use that quotient rule. Okay? Well, I still have a 6 divided by 12. So I'm just going to leave that for a second. I'm going to kind of separate it out a little. And I have the quotient, and the quotient rule says you take the power of the numerator and you subtract the power of the denominator. So I have x, and I'll have a 2 minus 4. Okay? So 6 over 12 does simplify to a 1 over 2. And now that 2 minus 4 simplifies to a negative 2. So I'm down to 1x. Got things as simplified. The only problem is I can't have a negative exponent. So I've got to use the negative rule. Okay? So that negative rule up top says if it's negative, then we need to move it to the denominator if it's in the numerator. If it's in the denominator already, we move it up to the numerator. You just move it up or down depending where it's at. Well, this is in the top, so I need to move it to the bottom. So I still have 1 over 2, but this time x squared needs to move from the numerator to the denominator to get rid of that negative. So the negative's now gone. Okay? Now I have no negative exponents, and I only have the variable one time. And everything's just as simplified as it gets, nice and pretty. So go ahead and work on that practice. You will be able to finish and submit that into Canvas.